Lee Min-jun sat alone at a corner table, his fingers wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long since grown cold. His eyes, once bright with the fire of ambition and dreams, now stared unseeing into the distance. The world around him had become a symphony of sounds, a tapestry of scents, and a collection of textures that he was still learning to navigate. 6 months had passed since the accident that changed everything. 6 months since he had thrown himself between a speeding car and the woman he loved, saving her life but losing his sight in the process. 6 months since Park Ji-yoon had disappeared from his life, unable to bear the guilt of what her rescue had cost him. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The cafe door chimed softly, and a familiar scent drifted through the air. Jasmine and vanilla, the same perfume that had haunted his dreams for half a year. Min-jun's heart stopped, his breathing shallow as he strained to listen. Could it really be her? "Excuse me," a voice said hesitantly from beside his table. The voice he had been longing to hear. The voice that had whispered his name in the ambulance as he faded into darkness. "Is this seat taken?" Min-jun's hands trembled slightly as he turned toward the sound. "Ji-eun?" Her name escaped his lips like a prayer, filled with months of pain, longing, and unanswered questions. There was a moment of silence before she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, it's me." She sat down across from him, and Min-jun could hear the soft rustle of her clothes, the way her breathing seemed as unsteady as his own. The space between them felt charged with electricity, heavy with all the words they had never said, and all the time they had lost. I come here every day," she said finally, her voice thick with unshed tears. "I sit at the table behind you and watch you drink your coffee. I've been trying to find the courage to speak to you for 3 months. Min-jun felt his world tilt on its axis. 3 months? You've been here for 3 months? I know I have no right, Ji-eun continued, her voice breaking. I know I should have stayed away. What I did to you, leaving you when you needed me most. It's unforgivable. The pain in her voice cut through Min-jun's heart like a blade. He reached across the table blindly, his fingers searching until they found hers. The moment their skin touched, it was as if an electric current ran between them, awakening every suppressed feeling, every buried memory. Ji-eun, he said softly, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her hand. I never blamed you. Not for the accident, not for leaving. I understood why you had to go. But I blame myself, she whispered, her tears finally falling freely. Every night I lay awake thinking about what you sacrificed for me. Your career as a photographer, your independence, your dreams of traveling the world, capturing moments in time. I took all of that away from you. Min-jun's grip on her hand tightened. You didn't take anything away from me. I made a choice, Ji-eun. In that split second when I saw that car heading toward you, I didn't think about my career or my dreams. I only thought about you, about losing you, and I would make the same choice again, 1,000 times over. The cafe around them seemed to fade away as they sat there, hands intertwined, finally allowing themselves to feel everything they had been holding back. The other customers, the soft music, the rain against the windows. It all became background noise to the sound of their hearts beating in synchronization. I've been working, Ji-eun said after a long moment, her voice stronger now. I've been volunteering at the Seoul Institute for the Blind, learning everything I can about helping people adjust to sight loss. I've been preparing, hoping that maybe someday I could find a way to make up for what I cost you. Min-jun felt his breath catch. You've been studying to help me? I've been studying to help you live, she corrected. Not just survive, but truly live. I know you, Min-jun. I know you're too proud to ask for help, too stubborn to accept pity. But what if I told you that I'm not offering either? What if I told you that I want to be your partner, your equal, your guide not out of guilt but out of love? The word hung between them like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Love. The word they had danced around for years. The feeling they had both been too afraid to acknowledge until it was almost too late. I love you, Min-jun said, the words flowing from his heart without reservation. I've loved you since the day we met in university, when you accidentally spilled coffee on my camera and spent the entire afternoon helping me clean it. I loved you when you stayed up all night, helping me prepare for exhibitions. I loved you when you believed in my work, even when I didn't believe in myself. And I love you now, sitting here in this cafe, offering to be my guide through a world I'm still learning to navigate. Ji-eun's sob was audible now, but it was a sound of joy mixed with sorrow, relief mixed with regret. I love you too, she whispered. I've always loved you. That's why I left, because I couldn't bear to watch you struggle and know it was my fault. But I realize now that leaving you was the most selfish thing I could have done. I abandoned you when you needed me most. You're here now, Min-jun said, bringing her hand to his lips and pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. That's all that matters. They talked until the cafe began to empty, their conversation flowing like water finding its natural course. Ji-eun told him about her months of training, how she had learned about mobility techniques, adaptive technologies, and most importantly, how to support someone without taking away their independence. Min-jun shared his struggles and his small victories, his fears and his hopes for the future. I want to show you something, Ji-eun said as they prepared to leave. But first, I need you to trust me. Min-jun smiled, the first genuine smile he had worn in months. I've always trusted you. She guided him carefully through the streets of Seoul, her hand light on his arm, her voice painting pictures of their surroundings. We're passing the bookstore where you used to buy photography magazines, she said. The owner asks about you sometimes. There's a new flower shop next to it. The scent is incredible, like walking through a garden. Her descriptions were vivid and detailed, bringing the world to life in a way that mere sight never could. She didn't just tell him what things looked like. She helped him experience them through sound, smell, and touch. When they passed a street musician, she paused so he could listen to the melody. When they walked by a bakery, she described the warmth that spilled out onto the sidewalk, along with the aroma of fresh bread. Where are we going? Min-jun asked, as they turned down a quieter street. Somewhere I've been working on a surprise for you, Ji-eun replied, her voice filled with nervous excitement. They stopped in front of a building that Min-jun didn't recognize. Ji-eun guided him up a flight of stairs and through a door that opened with the sound of a key turning in a lock. This is my apartment, she said softly. But I've been transforming it into something else, something for both of us. As they entered, Min-jun was immediately struck by how different the space felt. The floors were clear and uncluttered, with distinct pathways between rooms. Everything had a place, and he could sense the careful organization that had gone into making the space navigable. I've been learning about adaptive design, Ji-eun explained as she guided him through the apartment. Feel this. She placed his hand on a series of raised dots on the wall. It's Braille. I've been learning to read it, and I've labeled everything. The kitchen cabinets, the light switches, even the books on the shelves. Min-jun ran his fingers over the Braille labels, amazement growing in his chest. You learned Braille? I learned Braille, orientation and mobility techniques, how to describe visual scenes effectively, cooking techniques for people with visual impairments. I even learned how to be a sighted guide properly. I wanted to be able to help you in every way possible. But it was the next room that truly took Min-jun's breath away. Ji-eun led him into what he realized was a studio space, but one unlike any he had ever experienced. The air smelled of clay and metal, wood and fabric, a mixture of artistic materials that spoke to creative possibility. I know you can't take photographs anymore, Ji-eun said softly, but I thought maybe you could create in other ways. Sculpture, pottery, woodworking, art that you can feel and shape with your hands. I've been taking classes, learning about tactile arts, talking to artists who create without sight. Min-jun reached out and felt the various materials arranged on tables and shelves. Clay waiting to be molded, wood ready to be carved, metal that could be shaped into forms both beautiful and meaningful. It was as if she had opened a door to a world he never knew existed. Ji-eun, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. You did all this For me? I did it for us, she corrected. I know I can't give you back your sight, but maybe I can help you see the world in new ways. Maybe together we can create something beautiful. In that moment, standing in the studio she had created for him, surrounded by the tools and materials that represented new possibilities, Min-jun felt something he hadn't experienced since the accident. Hope. Not just hope for survival or adaptation, but hope for a future filled with creativity, love, and partnership. There's something else, Ji-eun said, her voice barely above a whisper. She guided his hands to an easel where something was waiting. I've been working on this for months. Min-jun's fingers explored the surface, feeling the raised lines and textures of what he realized was a tactile artwork. The image began to take shape under his touch. Two figures walking together, one guiding the other, but both clearly supporting each other. It was a beautiful representation of partnership, of two people moving through the world together. It's us, Ji-eun explained. But not just as we are now. It's us as we could be. Partners, equals, each bringing our own strengths to the relationship. You're not just someone I'm helping. You're someone who's helping me too. You're teaching me to see the world through senses I never fully appreciated before. Min-jun traced the figures with his fingertips, understanding dawning in his heart. We're both guiding each other. Yes, Ji-eun said, her hand covering his on the artwork. That's what I want us to be. Not helper and helpee, but partners. I want to be your eyes when you need them, and I want you to be my heart when I lose my way. The weeks that followed were filled with discovery and growth. True to her word, Ji-eun became Min-jun's guide, but not in the way he had expected. She didn't coddle him or treat him as fragile. Instead, she challenged him, supported him, and walked beside him as he learned to navigate his new reality. Their first official outing together was to Namsan Park, a place they had visited countless times when they were younger. But this time, the experience was entirely different. Ji-eun described the changing colors of the autumn leaves, the way the light filtered through the canopy, the expressions on the faces of other visitors. But more than that, she helped Min-jun discover aspects of the park he had never noticed before. The sound of leaves crunching underfoot, the different scents carried on the wind, the texture of tree bark under his fingers. Stop, Min-jun said suddenly as they walked along a familiar path. Do you hear that? Ji-eun paused, listening. The fountain? No, beyond that. There's music. She listened more carefully and then smiled. You're right. There's someone playing guitar near the pavilion. I never would have noticed that. It became a pattern in their relationship, Ji-eun lending Min-jun her eyes while he shared with her his heightened awareness of the world around them. Together they experienced Seoul in ways neither had ever imagined possible. In the studio Ji-eun had created, Min-jun began to explore new forms of artistic expression. His first attempts at sculpture were clumsy and frustrating, but Ji-eun was there to encourage him, to help him understand the properties of clay and the techniques for shaping it. Slowly, his hands began to remember the creative impulses that had once driven his photography. I used to capture moments, he said one evening as he worked on a piece that was beginning to take the form of two intertwined figures. Now I'm creating them. You're still capturing moments, Ji-eun observed, watching him work. You're just using different tools. The sculpture grew under his hands, becoming more refined with each session. It was abstract but unmistakably emotional. Two forms that seemed to dance together, support each other, become stronger in their union than they had been apart. It's beautiful, Ji-eun said when he finally declared it finished. But how do you know? How can you tell when it's complete? Min-jun smiled, his hands still resting on the sculpture. I can feel it, the balance, the harmony. It's like how I used to know when a photograph was perfectly composed. Some things don't need to be seen to be understood. Their relationship deepened as they learned to navigate the world together. Ji-eun proved to be an excellent guide, but more than that, she was a partner who understood that independence was as important as support. She taught Min-jun to use a white cane, helped him learn to navigate public transportation, and practiced sighted guide techniques until they moved together as naturally as dancers. But it was the small moments that truly defined their partnership. The way Ji-eun would describe a sunset, not just in terms of color, but in terms of feeling. "It's the kind of sunset that makes you believe in magic," she would say. The way Min-jun would identify the emotions in her voice, even when she tried to hide them, offering comfort without being asked. One evening, as they sat together in their favorite cafe, the same one where they had been reunited, Ji-eun brought up something that had been on her mind. "I've been thinking about your photography," she said carefully. "I know you feel like that part of your life is over, but what if it doesn't have to be?" Min-jun looked up from his coffee, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "What if we collaborated? What if I could be your eyes behind the camera and you could be the artistic vision that guides the shot? We could create something entirely new. Photography that captures emotion and story in ways that traditional photography never could." The idea was revolutionary and terrifying at the same time. Min-jun had assumed that his career as a photographer was over, that he would have to find entirely new ways to express his creativity. But Ji-eun was suggesting something different. Not a replacement for his old life, but an evolution of it. "You would do that?" he asked. "You would be my partner in that way." "I would be your partner in every way," Ji-eun replied without hesitation. "If you'll have me." Their first collaborative photography session was both exhilarating and challenging. They set up in a small park near their apartment, with Ji-eun holding the camera while Min-jun guided her through composition and timing. It was awkward at first. They had to develop a language of communication that would allow them to work together seamlessly. "Move left," Min-jun would say, and Ji-eun would adjust her position. "Wait for the light," he would add, somehow sensing the perfect moment, even without seeing it. Now, the results were extraordinary. The photographs captured not just images, but emotions, stories, and moments of genuine human connection. They had found a way to combine Ji-eun's sight with Min-jun's artistic instincts, creating something that was greater than the sum of its parts. Word of their unique collaboration began to spread through Seoul's art community. Gallery owners and curators were intrigued by the concept of photography created by a partnership between a sighted and non-sighted artist. Their first exhibition, titled Seeing Beyond Sight, was held in a small gallery in Insadong and drew crowds of people curious about their innovative approach. "Ladies and gentlemen," the gallery owner announced at the opening reception, "please welcome our featured artists, Park Ji-eun and Lee Min-jun." The applause was warm and genuine, but Min-jun felt nervous as he and Ji-eun approached the microphone. They had prepared remarks, but standing before the crowd, he felt the weight of sharing their story. "6 months ago," Min-jun began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I thought my life as an artist was over. I had defined myself by my ability to see and capture visual moments, and when I lost my sight, I felt like I had lost everything." He paused, feeling Ji-eun's hand slip into his, drawing strength from her presence. "But I learned something important," he continued. "Art isn't about the tools you use or the senses you rely on. It's about the vision you bring to the world, the emotions you want to share, and the connections you make with others. These photographs represent more than just images. They represent partnership, trust, and the belief that two people working together can create something extraordinary." Ji-eun stepped forward to the microphone. "When Min-jun lost his sight saving my life, I thought I had destroyed everything beautiful in his world. But working together on this project, I've learned that beauty exists in ways I never imagined. These photographs are a testament to the power of seeing beyond sight, of understanding that there are many ways to perceive and interpret the world around us." The reception was overwhelmingly positive. People were moved not just by the quality of the photographs, but by the story behind them. Several pieces sold that evening, and by the end of the night, they had commissions for 3 more exhibitions. As they walked home together, Min-jun and Ji-eun reflected on how far they had come. From the desperate separation after the accident to their reunion in the cafe, From the tentative first steps of partnership to the success of their first exhibition, their journey had been filled with challenges, growth, and discoveries. "Do you ever regret it?" Ji-eun asked quietly as they paused outside their apartment building. "Do you ever wish things had been different?" Min-jun considered the question seriously. "I regret that you carry guilt about the accident," he said finally. "I regret the pain we both went through during those months apart. But do I regret the path that led us here, to this partnership, to this love we share? Never." He turned to face her, his hands finding her face in the darkness. "Ji-eun, you've given me so much more than sight could ever offer. You've given me a new way of seeing, a new way of creating, and most importantly, a partner who understands that love isn't about fixing each other. It's about growing together." Their kiss was soft and filled with promise, a seal on the commitment they had made to each other and to the future they were building together. The seasons changed, and with them, Min-jun and Ji-eun's partnership continued to evolve and deepen. They developed new techniques for their collaborative photography, experimenting with different subjects and styles. Their work began to gain recognition, not just in Seoul, but internationally, with art critics praising their innovative approach and the emotional depth of their images. But beyond their professional success, their personal relationship flourished. They had learned to communicate in ways that went beyond words, to trust each other completely, and to find joy in the simple moments of daily life together. 1 year after their reunion in the cafe, Min-jun planned a surprise for Ji-eun. With the help of friends and careful preparation, he arranged for them to return to the site of their first collaborative photo session, the small park where they had discovered their artistic partnership. "Why are we here?" Ji-eun asked as they walked along the familiar path. "It's not even a good time for photography. The light is almost gone." "Sometimes the best moments happen when we're not looking for them," Min-jun replied, stopping at the exact spot where they had taken their first photograph together. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, his heart racing as he dropped to one knee. "Ji-eun," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "you've been my guide through the darkness, my partner in art, and my companion in life. You've shown me that sight is just one way of seeing, and that love is the truest vision of all." Ji-eun gasped, her hands flying to her mouth as she realized what was happening. "I can't see your face right now," Min-jun continued, "but I can hear your breathing. I can feel your surprise and joy, and I know with absolute certainty that I want to spend the rest of my life experiencing the world through our shared vision. Will you marry me?" Through her tears, Ji-eun managed to say yes, and as Min-jun slipped the ring onto her finger, the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the Seoul skyline. But in their hearts, the world had never been brighter. Their wedding 6 months later was a celebration, not just of their love, but of the journey that had brought them together. The ceremony was held in the same park where Min-jun had proposed, surrounded by friends, family, and members of the art community who had been touched by their story. As they exchanged vows, Min-jun spoke about how Ji-eun had taught him to see beyond sight, and Ji-eun promised to be his partner in all adventures, artistic and otherwise. They had learned that true partnership wasn't about one person guiding another, but about two people choosing to walk through life together, each contributing their unique strengths to their shared journey. The reception featured a slideshow of their collaborative photographs, each image telling part of their story. The final image was one they had taken on their wedding day, a photograph of their hands intertwined, wearing their new wedding rings, with the Seoul skyline blurred in the background. It was a perfect metaphor for their partnership. Two individuals creating something beautiful together, with the world as their canvas. As the evening wound down and the last guests departed, Min-jun and Ji-eun found themselves alone in the park, where so much of their story had unfolded. The sounds of the city hummed around them. Traffic in the distance, the rustle of leaves in the evening breeze, the distant laughter of young couples walking by. "Are you ready to go home?" Ji-eun asked, her hand finding his in the darkness. Min-jun smiled, thinking about the apartment they now shared. the studio where they created their art, and the life they were building together. "I am home," he said, squeezing her hand gently. "Wherever you are, I'm home." As they walked together through the streets of Seoul, two figures moving in perfect synchronization, their story continued to unfold. They had learned that love isn't about seeing with your eyes but with your heart. That partnership isn't about dependence, but about interdependence. And that sometimes the most beautiful journeys begin with the courage to trust another person completely. The city lights twinkled around them like stars, and though Minjun couldn't see them, he could feel their warmth, just as he could feel the love and partnership that had transformed both their lives. They had found their way to each other through darkness and light, through loss and discovery, and now they walked forward together, ready for whatever adventures awaited them. In the distance, the sounds of Seoul continued, a symphony of life, love, and endless possibility. And in the heart of it all, two souls moved as one, proof that sometimes the most profound sight comes not from what we see with our eyes, but from what we discover when we learn to see with our hearts. Their story was far from over. It was just beginning.